Good morning, and this is a special morning. It's super special because it's filled with a lot of soul, and there's no better person to speak about the soul and a soulbattical, which we're going to get into, than my guest today, Shelley Paxton. A quick little story. I met Shelley a couple years ago. I actually met her in real life. That happens still. And something immediately struck me. Like, we are the same but different. And I could so relate to what was happening for her. And this is why I wanted to bring her here, because I know that her story is just unbelievably relatable to so many of us asking ourselves, is this really the career that I signed up for? Like, how did I get here? And maybe even, why am I still here? So I am just thrilled and delighted. Shelley Paxton, thank you, author of Soulbattical. Oh my goodness. I literally,
Yay.
I wish I could just put the whole world on pause right now, because I just don't want this to end, just saying. And so,
Oh, amen, sister. And I wish we were sitting in the same room so I could give you
right?
a big hug. You are such a force of nature. It's an honor to do this with you. Thank you.
Thank you. And you squeeze this in before your next trip to Mexico, where you'll be teaching. And I did put a question in the chat. So please let us know. Tell us that one thing right now in this moment that's lighting your soul on fire. And, you were the one that helped us with this icebreaker. And what I want to know is, how did you get here? Right? How did you get to this Soulbattical? How did you get to this place that you are sitting at right this minute? Because my guess, and from what I know from the book, is that this was not necessarily the plan.
Oh, yeah. It's the furthest thing from the plan and the way I was raised and the success script I was handed as a child. And we can get into all of that. I mean, honestly, if I tell the whole story, we will be here all day long hanging out with each other. So let me break this down into little chunks, and then you take me whatever direction you want to go. And if there are questions popping up, we can dive into those as well. So, yeah, I mean, the long story short is I spent 26 years in the advertising and marketing space, having an incredible career and no regrets. That was my path in life. And it took me all around the world. I had the honor of serving some of the most iconic global brands in the world, from McDonald's to Visa to, when I was at the peak of my career, Harley Davidson, which, I mean, is there a more iconic brand than one that people tattoo on their freaking bodies? Right? So that was the plan. I come from a family. I was raised in a very, modest Midwestern family. My dad was the first in his family to go to college. That was very important. And so he was like, this is what we do. We work our asses off,
Right.
we get a good education, and we start climbing the ladder with like ferocity. This is what we do. And so, obviously with good intention, it's all he knew, and it's all he and my mom knew, that they had made something of themselves, right? And I put that in quotes because that's their definition of having made something. But that was the success script I was handed. And I was, as a rebel, right? I was just like, wait a second, this all isn't making total sense. But I didn't see other models at the time. I didn't know what else to do. So I kept climbing and climbing and climbing until I find myself at the peak of the proverbial mountain, as we say. I was chief marketing officer of Harley Davidson. And I was like, exactly the question you posed in the title of this conversation. Like, is this all there is? And I started to feel really guilty, right?
Oh, totally, right? I mean, it's almost, there's almost like a self-shame. Like, I did all of this, and I should be grateful. I should be grateful I have a job. I should be grateful that I'm gainfully employed and working for XYZ organization. And I don't know about you, but I hear a lot of women kind of like quietly scratching their head, saying to themselves, wait a second, like I got all the cash and prizes, I did all the things, and now I am also miserable, unfulfilled, and also massively confused about how to navigate these new waters, because all I know is how to control this thing that I've signed up for.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that
About
is,
that.
yeah, that's a beautiful way of summarizing exactly where I was too. So for anybody who's listening to this right now and feeling that way, like I get you, right? That's my story. That's why I wanted to share my story. Brene Brown has this beautiful quote. I'm not going to get it exactly right, but the idea is that we tell the stories of what we overcame so it can become someone else's survival guide.
Mm. Well, I also like the term that you use, success script, right? The success
Yeah.
script here, this is what it looks like. Now follow this to the T, and then you will be successful. Like this road, this kind of inflexible roadmap that looks in this special way, this like kind of very specific way. And what I also wanted to ask you is, like, what was the, I call them the, I come to Jesus moments. What was that like? Ooh, like this is just getting so loud that I can't ignore it anymore. What was that turning point, the epiphany, the white light moment? What was that looking like?
Yeah, well, let me connect connect the dots on two of the things that you said, because when we talk about success scripts, I mean, this was one of my biggest learnings, and it's been 6.5 years since I left Harley, and I'm still learning every single day. And one of the things that I know so clearly, and this was kind of at the epicenter of the TEDx talk that I did, which hopefully will be out in the world in a month or so, maybe within the next 6 to 8 weeks. The idea is that we often get to these pinnacle places and we are looking around, right? Because we've done all the things. It's like, oh, you told me to tick this box and this box and this box and this box. And now I've done all these things. Why do I feel so empty inside? So I feel like we have this is about success scripts. And then I'll get into my cosmic kick in the ass, right? So the success scripts thing is like, a big thing that I'm a stand for is we get to author our own script. So let's interrogate, like, where are those scripts coming from? What did we inherit? What do we actually want? How does success feel to me, to you, to anyone else listening, so that we can truly live success full, like FULL, all capital letters, because I think so many of us, like when you look at the burnout rates, when you look at current mental health crisis, when you look at all of it, people aren't using holiday, quiet quitting, like there's a long list, right? This is, our opportunity to say what really matters most to me, and what are the terms that I want to build my life off of. That looks like success. So that's what I'm a stand for. It's like, let's start really, really consciously understanding what is that script that's been operating in the background that's, probably had us shoulding a lot. And what is the script that I want to author, that I want to, in my language, I say rebel for, right?
Rebel for. And so, God bless technology. I'm not seeing comments. I love to put the little clips in here. I can tell from the back channel. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Claudia, that the comments are coming in. So keep them coming, because I'll definitely respond in the feed. But I think that
perfect.
I think that this is so important, right? What you just said was the fullness. I don't know about you, but I have compartmentalized my life. My work life was over here. My home life was over here. And ironically, I thought I was compartmentalizing. But when I had a miserable job, it spilled over into other places. And let's just say I wasn't making a lot of friends, so this is danger zone. And
yeah, it is the danger zone. And this is a great bridge to the question that you asked, because you and I both know, and I suspect that everybody listening to this also knows this. It's sometimes we're pretending not to know what is those little nudges, right? It's one of my favorite questions. What are you pretending not to know? And I often turn the tables on myself and ask it. But here's the thing, like our soul, like, it whispers, and then it kind of like yells at us, and it shouts, and then it like whacks us with a 2x4. Like, wake the fuck up.
and so
And
what do
so,
we do with that panic? Because that's both the best news and the worst news, because now it's unavoidable.
I
It's
know.
like a crying
Well,
baby.
and
It's so urgent, right? It's like, rah, rah. So tell us what we do with that panic.
yeah. Well, and it's terrifying, right? So first, let's just call it what it is. Like, it's absolutely terrifying because we're often going, "Oh, maybe I'd rather that they just lay me off," or, somebody
Right?
else tell me what to do, or
Make
we
it
want
easy for
all these.
me.
Yeah, and I get it, right? Because it's like, "Oh, somebody else just tell me what to do, or somebody else just force this thing to happen." But we know that change needs to happen, and yeah, at some point you can't avoid it. For me, it was a nightmare. My book starts with this like life-changing nightmare that I was having nearly every night of the week while I was still at Harley. And for me, it was about learning to get still, learning to slow down so I could really truly understand what was going on and what was I being told. And so it started out as meditation and slowing down because, I mean, let's be honest, it was the hardest thing, and still sometimes it's really challenging for me to do, to say, okay, when I want to run the most, when I want, right? Because we often outrun and outnumb, and we try to do all the things to not hear the truth.
Oh yeah. Yes.
And
And
so,
that is next level. And then in that stillness, right, in that deafening silence, what do you do? What do you do with the truth?
yeah, listen, there are many things you can do, and only you will truly know what to do with the truth. Here's what I would say: you don't have to eat the whole elephant at the same time, right? Like, I made a choice ultimately, and it took me a long time. So I was having this nightmare for my final year at Harley, and I only really understood what it was telling me about 4 months in, when I went to see a doctor and he helped me with meditation and to slow down and to start processing. And I understood that what I was seeing in this nightmare was my soul, and it was malnourished and longing for connection and love and just wanted me to listen to it. And that was a crossroads for me. It was like, oh wow, okay, I can't now unsee and
Right.
unhear, right?
Right. That's the hard part, because the
That's the
breadcrumbs,
hard
the
part.
breadcrumbs are gone. You can't find your way back anymore, and you're like, oh shit, like exactly
Yeah.
what you just said. I can't unsee it anymore. And so you got real
Yeah.
still, right? And then what? You got still.
Yeah. And then I was like, okay, I really, first of all, I started connecting with myself and learning how to listen deeply. I honestly think that was the first step. And I know it sounds so ethereal to
Right.
say
I know.
that.
That's why I'm trying to to help you as the catalyst and conduit for this message reach an audience who, let's face it, in many cases would probably agree that they too have been title whores. I was for sure. And so I'm thinking to myself, oh, nice for Shelley, like good for you that you could take some time. And what you're saying is that malnourishment, that nightmare, the cosmic kick in the ass, that wasn't some lighthearted nudge.
No, it was very truly a kick in the ass, and I feel like the universe's foot stayed up my ass for a very long time until I was like, okay, I am going to take action. So this gets to the heart of your question. So what does, I always say every badass accomplishment is a series of tiny steps. So what does one tiny step of inspired action in the direction of like what you're hearing look like for you?
Oh, please,
so for
God,
me,
put yours in this chat. I don't even care if it's like going without sugar in your coffee today, because I had to do that. I don't really care.
yeah.
It doesn't have to be some like I'm quitting my job, or you know I'm going to the some ashram. It doesn't have to
Listen,
be.
here's a great one. Here's a great one. Like, what are you going to say no to today so you can say yes to yourself? Some of it is reframing our language. I have this concept that, it may be too much for us to get into, but the general gist of it is this. We talk so much about self-care, and listen, I'm a believer in self-care, of course. Like, that's at the foundation of us showing up powerfully in the world for ourselves and others. And I believe that there's this bigger idea that I call radical self-commitment. And that self-care is, if that's an umbrella, self-care is a piece of that. And it's so much deeper. It starts with, what are my values? Are you clear on your top 3 values that guide everything in your life?
And what are
Because
yours? What are yours? What are your top 3?
Mine are freedom, authenticity, and courage. And I say that really easily right now, like, oh yeah, of course there are these 3 things, but let me be really clear to everybody here. I did not know that before I left Harley. That work on truly, and this was inspired by Brene Brown. She's somebody who I've trained with and who I just deeply, deeply admire. And so I went through and was like, oh my God, coming up with your top 2 or 3 values is very challenging. It's really easy for us to say, like, she actually has on her website for free, if anybody wants to do this exercise, and I say, yes, please do it. Like 100 and something on one PDF. Download it, take a look at it. It's super easy to get to like 20. And then it becomes increasingly more difficult to get to 15 and 10 and 5. And then it is excruciating to get to 2 or 3. And ironically, it'll change your life.
Shout out to Courtney Addy. We just did this module that she led last week in the Portfolio Rocket group. So shout out to you, Courtney. Well done.
Oh my God, Courtney, I love it. Yes, more of us. And listen, this is super important work. I don't own this work, but why I speak about it is because it was one of the tiny steps that started to open new doors and new portals and new understanding of myself and my journey. So when I got clear, I started laughing. I was like, oh my God, freedom is my number 1. No wonder I was always wrestling. No wonder, one, that I was attracted to the Harley Davidson brand, right? Like freedom, authenticity, courage, like, right? It makes total sense. But then when it really came down to how I'm living my life, yeah, I was like, I think I was just trying to, I say in my TEDx talk, like I was clinging to a rebel brand because I had lost touch with my own rebel soul.
Ooh, wait, and mic drop. Because you tried to compensate it for it on the outside. And then you realize, wait a second, I identify with this, but I'm not this. Like, I need to actually embody the Harley spirit rather than necessarily just being in that external, environment where everyone who is a part of the brand is also a symbol of all those things that you just described.
Yeah, 100%. And that was the emoji with the head exploding. That was totally and completely my moment. And so start with this, like when you think about tiny, inspired, practical steps, that values exercise, is the gift that keeps on giving. Because then when you go back to this radical self-commitment framework that I think about, it goes values, when you get clear on your top 2 or 3, lead to boundaries. So
Oh,
then, right? What's okay and what's not okay in service of my values and well-being, right? So then those boundaries start to tell us a lot about where we want to be spending our energy and our time, what's lighting us up, what's not lighting us up, right? I love the first question that you asked in the chat, because that's a really important one. Like, what fuels your soul and what drains it?
oh,
And that, yeah, and that can start to inform these boundaries. So values inform our boundaries, which then create some spaciousness in our lives. And that's where we can start to say, even if this is 2 extra hours a week in your life. I think this is super important because, Lauren, I know you and I have talked about this. It's like, not everybody's journey is going to look like mine, and it's not intended to. That's okay. Your journey is going to be whatever is right for you. What's super clear to me, we were talking about this before we started recording. When I left and I invented, Soulbattical is an invented word. I invented it because I had no idea how to tell people what I was doing. And I was getting a lot of side eyes and like raised eyebrows and quizzical looks and like some like just what the fucks, right? Especially from my family. And so I created this word. And what I love about that is I thought it meant leaving your job, but it actually means finding yourself
right,
and creating and authoring your own script from that place.
right. So
That's what
I just
Soulbattical
wanna
is.
like put like a special neon sign saying, this is not brought to you by quit your job today and go find yourself out in the world. This message is brought to you by get in touch with yourself exactly where you are. And in your case, you did leave. In my case, I did leave, but that isn't the message that we're advocating for here. And the other piece that I want to pivot into, which is so important, which you just referenced as the side eye, was the resistance of the crowd around you. And I've made a lot of very unpopular decisions in my life. I'm sure you have too. And it's easy. And I at one point I caved. I mean, I still like regret that I listened to that committee. And so what are we supposed to do now that we've woken up, now that we've taken some of that, our values, and created some boundaries? And what are we going to do with all the people that are pushing back and are saying, oh, come on, like you're selfish, or they're going to say like, this is radical, or this is, you've lost your marbles? What do we do with those people?
Well, listen, we know this, right? There's only one opinion that accounts, and it's yours. However, none of this is going to feel comfortable. And I am somebody who contorted myself into pretzels constantly to like fit into the boxes and do the thing and please the people and play whatever game I had to play to be successful on somebody else's terms. So I understand that then to make decisions that are the opposite of that, it is going to feel very unfamiliar and very uncomfortable. And when you think about this in the context of that framework I just provided, some of the boundaries might be who you are going to spend time with, right? What you are choosing to listen to, because ultimately a lot of those voices for me, even some in my own family, became soul sucks. Because I knew one thing really clearly. So when I left, just for perspective, when I left Harley, I was 46. When I actually walked out the door, that's kind of late in your career to be like, okay, I got to the top of the mountain. I'm going to potentially let myself slide all the way back down to the bottom.
Yeah.
I didn't know what this was going to look like. But I kept asking myself this question, like, when I am 50, so I had 4 years until now I'm 53, but I had 4 years until I was 50. I'm like, when I'm 50, like, what if I keep going this direction? Like, am I getting closer to who I want to be or further away? Am I even going to be alive? because I was feeling so burnt out and so stressed out and so toxic and all of these things. So for me, it was really important, whatever the version of that question is for you. It's like, think about the next 2 to 5 years. I'm not a planner. I kind of show up and go with the energy every day. But when you really think about like, oh my God, this is my favorite. I think you've heard me talk about this before, but I talked in the TEDx talk about the top regret of the dying. The number one regret of the dying, according to Bronnie Ware, who's an Australian palliative care nurse and author of this must read book, top 5 regrets of the dying, based on her literally sitting on the deathbed and interviewing. The top regret is, I wish I'd had the courage to live the life true to myself and not the life others expected of me. And honestly, that was my wake up, where I was like, oh shit, man, then I'm going to be 50 and then I'm going to be 55 and then I'm going to be 60. And I'm not suggesting that any of these are like old or anything, but I just thought, how long do I want to live on someone else's terms and feeling the way I feel, feeling empty, feeling sick, feeling toxic? And I was like, no, I don't. And so I need to take at least one step in the direction of investing in myself, in the direction of starting to rewrite this script. And so that's what I would say, like, these boundaries become really important. In maybe they're just some people who you will prune out of your network because they aren't supportive. And that's okay. You get to make that choice. It's not easy. But what I ended up doing is, over time, I built a new community for myself.
And I really want to stress this. The community of people who are going to, of course, lift you up, keep your fire lit. And also, you're going to be sharpening your tools, because chances are they are on a very similar journey. And when they can do it, you get to play Simon Says, not to say copy exactly what they're doing, but use that inspiration and repurpose that with yourself. It's one of the reasons why I'm so devout to the community of Portfolio Rocket, because a lot of the clients that I work with have been out of the marketplace for double-digit years, 15 years, 23 years, 26 years. I have a new guy coming in. This is the only job he's ever had. And so what do you do when you are literally at such a place where the groundlessness is terrifying? Mm-hmm. Surround yourself with other people who have been there, done that, so that they can speak not only from the heart, but also serve as the flywheel to get you to where you need to go.
Yeah. Who's your soul tribe? I mean, this is basically how you and I found each other. Totally. Right. And I, day by day, person by person, I find the people who fuel my soul, who fuel my energy, who are on, I say similar path, but it doesn't mean we're doing the exact same things, but who are really committed to living successful, right? To making sometimes unpopular decisions, right? But ones that give you life, ones that light you up, ones that are truly like making you a bright light in the world. Because one of the things, like, I define success in my life now by impact. It's not money, right? Do I need to keep a roof over my head? Absolutely. Do I need some cash coming in? Absolutely. However, that's a lagging effect, right? What I talk about, like, liberating a billion souls. And for me, it's like, the more of us who are making these choices, supporting each other, the more we are the ripples of impact for change in the world. And we can start to dismantle these legacy cultures and powers and systems that are no longer serving us, period.
Exactly. So, in many respects, this is a blue ocean strategy, right? This is a whole new version of living life as so many of us have known it to be. Go grab a copy of your book, because I want you to bring it far forward. Yeah, I want you to give it some some airtime. So
some love.
Soulbattical, Corporate Rebel's Guide to Finding Your Best Self by Shelley Paxton. Also TED Talk, also like the complete badass. You can always find her on LinkedIn.
Thank you.
I know you're going to be taken off in a day or so to head to Mexico to do some teaching. You have created a fulfilling life for yourself and inspiring people like me and so many others to stop with that success script and redefine what it looks like to go and live full on.
Yeah.
Do it.
Here's one little thing.
Yeah.
Write yourself a permission slip. I use these orange Post-it notes every day. Just today, whenever you listen to this.
I was going to ask you what you wanted people to do before we got.
Yeah.
Just beat me to it. I'm grabbing a Post-it.
Perfect.
So
oh yeah, there you go. You dig for it. I'll explain it. But I use like stacks of orange Post-it notes, and I have stacks that I'm bringing with me. I love it. That I'm bringing with me down to Mexico, because we do this in all my workshops at Modern Elder Academy as well, or anywhere else that I teach. And it's every morning or in the moment. Ask yourself, what do I, in order to show up as my most badass, powerful self, what do I need to do, not do, or allow myself to feel? And sometimes like I'll do these before big presentations. I'll be like, Shelley, you have permission to have fun. Show up and have fun, right? Show up as yourself. Don't worry about what other people think, or the fact that you don't like to use PowerPoint, or whatever it is, right? Sometimes this is permission to take a nap because I didn't sleep well. Right? Today, it's permission to slow down because I'm in that manic pre-travel phase. And I'm like, no, girl, slow down. Nothing good comes from that manic place. So mine today is about slowing down and just really being present before I travel down to Mexico tomorrow. But write yourself a permission slip. You get to. This is part of this radical self-commitment idea, that we get to show up for ourselves. So what do you need? What do you need in the moment?
Fantastic. So if you guys can put what your permission that you're going to give yourself is in the chat, the same one that you're going to put on your Post-it, I would love to see it, because I'd love to support that. I know Shelley would too. So
yes,
you gave me permission this morning to reconnect with so many of the reasons why I do what I do today. And I also love what we talked about right before the show. A Soulbattical is not an event check mark, right? This is what your Soulbattical was when you started, is not what it is today. So keep the fires burning, right?
Soulbattical is a way of being. Show up for yourself every single day, living aligned with your truth. I actually wrote a definition: a way of being in full alignment with one's soul. It's a conscious choice to live with greater authenticity, courage, and purpose in order to experience true fulfillment.
And there we go. I will make sure that the links to your TED Talk, to Amazon, to get your book, and all other goodness is going to be in the chat. Thanks for bearing with me. I'm sorry about the technology. I hate that I couldn't see the comments coming in, because I love to showcase different people. So thank you all for being here. And most of all, Shelley, thank you for you. You're really changing lives. Stay around for 2 minutes after we end the broadcast, and I'll see you guys all next week. All right.
Thanks, everyone.